The Russo-Turkish Wars, how Russia crushed the Ottomans and sparked the fall of two empires. What happens when a frozen empire with orthodox zeal clashes with a crumbling crescent ruled by janissaries and stubborn sultans? What sparks a war that spans centuries, involves fire ships, plague, betrayal, and a showdown so intense it nearly redraws the map of Europe? But this isn't just a tale of two empires. It's a saga of 12 wars, 4 centuries, and one burning question. Who gets to rule the East? If you think history is boring, this video will prove you wrong. Once upon a time in the mid-1500s, the Ottoman Empire was the Beyoncé of global empires. Fierce, fabulous, and feared. They strutted across Eastern Europe, even knocking on Vienna's door like an uninvited guest with a battering ram. Meanwhile, Russia was just a humble duchy, Moscow's little backyard kingdom, still figuring out how to wear its imperial pants. But oh, how the tables turned. By the late 1800s, Russia had bulked up like a historical bodybuilder, flexing its control over Finland, Ukraine, and much of Poland. The Ottoman Empire, once the Sultan of Swagger, was now limping along like a tired old lion with a bad hip. The Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution had zoomed past them like a Tesla on the Autobahn, while they were still trying to fix their horse-drawn carts. Yet both empires shared one thing: a divine obsession with expansion. Russia wanted warm water ports and orthodox glory. The Ottomans wanted to keep their shrinking borders and Islamic prestige. Spoiler alert, this was not going to end with a friendly game of chess. In 1556, Ivan the Terrible, Russia's original bad boy, stormed into Astrakhan, a key trade hub north of the Caspian Sea. He shut down the slave markets, which were basically the Ottoman Empire's version of Amazon Prime. The Ottomans were not amused. They sent an army to reclaim it, but their campaign flopped harder than a wet pancake. Astrakhan was now Russian turf. The Ottomans, licking their wounds, called in their Crimean allies for revenge. In 1571, they burned Moscow to the ground, turning the city into a smoky barbecue pit of imperial humiliation. Russia never forgot. Fast forward to the 1670s. Ukraine was split like a bad divorce settlement, east to Moscow, west to the Ottomans. The locals hated it. Russia invaded and took Chigirin, the capital. The Ottomans snatched it back 2 years later. Result? A stalemate. But the real drama was just warming up. In 1683, the Ottomans tried to take Vienna again. This time, Europe clapped back. Christian nations formed a Holy Avengers squad and pushed the Ottomans out of Eastern Europe. Russia, smelling opportunity, tried to grab Crimea but failed. So Peter the Great aimed for Azov, a fortress guarding the Black Sea like a jealous bouncer. After a naval beatdown, Russia took Azov, victory. But not for long. In 1708, Sweden's King Charles XII invaded Russia. His campaign was a disaster. Think frozen soldiers, bad logistics, and a lot of regret. Charles fled to Ottoman Moldavia, dragging the Ottomans into the mess. Russia demanded his extradition. The Sultan said, nope. Peter the Great, now furious, invaded. But the Ottomans pulled a surprise Uno reverse card and surrounded his army. Peter had to sign the Treaty of Pruth, giving Azov back. Ouch. In 1735, Russia tried again. 60,000 troops marched into Ottoman territory, took Azov and parts of Crimea. But then, plot twist, the bubonic plague hit like a medieval horror movie. Russia had to retreat. Still, the Treaty of Niš gave Azov to Russia for good. The Ottomans would never get it back. By the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was the sick man of Europe, coughing up territory and prestige. Nationalist revolts in the Balkans, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania were boiling over. Russia, ever the opportunist, saw a chance to play hero of the Orthodox Christians and crush its ancient rival once and for all. And so, with Tsar Alexander II at the helm and a century of grudges in his pocket, Russia declared war in 1877. The final showdown was about to begin. By the mid-1700s, the Ottoman Empire was like a once glorious palace, now infested with bureaucratic termites. Reform? Ha! Every time a sultan tried to modernize, he was blocked by two formidable forces. The Islamic clergy, who feared change like cats fear bathtubs. The janissaries, elite soldiers who had become more interested in palace politics and kebab feasts than actual warfare. These guys were supposed to be the empire's backbone. Instead, they were more like a slipped disc. Meanwhile, to the north, Poland, once a proud commonwealth, had become Russia's puppet. The Polish nobility, fed up with Moscow's meddling, launched a rebellion in 1768. It failed spectacularly, and the rebels fled south into Ottoman territory like kids running from a bad report card. Russia, not one to let rebels escape, chased them across the border and committed atrocities on Ottoman soil. The Sultan, already cranky from his empire's slow decay, snapped. He arrested the Russian ambassador in Constantinople, a diplomatic slap that screamed, "We're done here!" Russia responded with its favorite hobby, invasion. Moldavia was gobbled up, and Russian warships sailed into the Aegean like they owned the place. Then came the Battle of Chesma, where Russian ships unleashed their secret weapon, fire ships. These were basically floating Molotov cocktails, and they worked like a charm. The Ottoman fleet was turned into a flaming graveyard. 20 ships lost, 10,000 men gone. It was a maritime massacre. The Ottomans, now losing on every front, crawled to the negotiating table and signed the Treaty of Küçük Kaynarca. Russia gained influence in the Balkans, and Crimea was declared independent, which in diplomatic speak meant soon to be Russian. 9 years later, Russia pulled the ultimate just kidding move and annexed Crimea. The Ottomans were furious but powerless, so they did what they always did when angry, declared war. And once again, they got steamrolled. Russia took more cities in Moldavia. Austria joined the party and snatched Serbia. Greece erupted in rebellion. The Ottoman Empire was now juggling wars like a blindfolded clown with flaming swords. The Treaty of Jassy in 1792 sealed the deal. Crimea was officially Russian. Ottoman pride in tatters. By 1805, Russia had just been humiliated by Napoleon at the Battle of Austerlitz. Sultan Selim III saw a golden opportunity. He tried to oust pro-Russian governors in Wallachia and Moldavia. Russia responded with its usual enthusiasm for war. Selim, realizing his army was about as effective as a soggy pita, tried to reform it, but the Janissaries weren't having it. They revolted, turned Constantinople into a bloodbath, and assassinated Selim. His brother took over, probably with a very nervous look on his face. On the battlefield, Russia kept winning. The final showdown came at Slobozia, on the Danube River. The Russians pulled a classic bait-and-trap maneuver, pretended to retreat, lured the Ottomans across the river, surrounded them, bombarded them for 6 weeks. The Ottomans, trapped, starving, and diseased, surrendered with 36,000 casualties. It was a disaster. And yet, in the peace talks that followed, Russia gained little. Why? Because diplomacy is weird. Sometimes you crush your enemy and still walk away with a handshake and a half-hearted treaty. But the message was clear. The Ottoman Empire was now the underdog in this centuries-long rivalry. Russia was the bear, and the Ottomans were the increasingly toothless lion. If you're loving this wild ride through centuries of betrayal, cannon fire, and imperial drama, don't just watch history, become part of it. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing army of history buffs, empire enthusiasts, and curious minds. As Napoleon prepared to invade everything that wasn't nailed down, the Ottomans saw a golden opportunity. Hey, they thought, Europe's distracted. Let's negotiate like we've got leverage. And so, they pressed for lenient terms in their latest diplomatic dance, hoping no one would notice their empire was held together with duct tape and denial. But once the Napoleonic dust settled, the Ottoman Empire was back to its usual state, wobbly, weary, and wildly unpopular in the Balkans. In 1821, Greece, fed up with Ottoman rule and inspired by ancient glory, rose in rebellion. The rebels were initially successful, waving their flags and shouting freedom, like extras in a historical blockbuster. But by 1826, the Ottomans had retaken most of Greece, and the rebellion looked doomed. Enter the European Avengers, Russia, Britain, and France. They weren't just there for the baklava, they came to smash the Ottoman navy at the Battle of Navarino, turning it into a floating bonfire. Constantinople was now vulnerable, and Russia marched all the way to Adrianople, just 200 miles from the Sultan's front porch. The Ottomans, sweating bullets and baklava syrup, signed a treaty. Greece became independent, and Russia gained more Balkan territory. The Ottoman Empire was now the kid at the playground getting picked last for dodgeball. With the Ottomans clearly on the decline, the European powers began whispering behind their backs. What do we do with this crumbling empire? This debate became known as the Eastern Question. which was basically a polite way of saying, who gets the loot when the Ottoman piñata finally bursts? Everyone was especially concerned about the fate of Christians in Ottoman lands. Russia had long claimed to be their protector, but now Napoleon III wanted that title. He sent French warships into Ottoman waters, and the Sultan, ever the pushover, gave him the honor. Tsar Nicholas I was livid. "That's my title," he roared, and promptly invaded Moldavia. Britain and France, worried Russia might snatch Constantinople like a shiny toy, issued an ultimatum: back off, or we'll join the Ottomans. Nicholas refused. Britain and France declared war. The Crimean War was a mess of mud, mismanagement, and military blunders. British and French troops landed in Crimea and defeated Russia at the Battle of Alma. Then came the siege of Sevastopol, a year-long slog that made trench foot fashionable. Eventually Sevastopol fell. Russia was forced to accept defeat. The new Tsar, Alexander II, renounced his claim to Christian protectorhood and gave back the territory. The Ottomans, technically on the winning side, still had to reduce their grip on the Balkans. It was like winning a game but losing your shoes. By 1875, the Ottoman Empire had about as much control over the Balkans as a cat has over a laser pointer. Herzegovina rose up, followed by Serbia, Bulgaria, and Montenegro. The Sultan sent troops to crush the rebellions, but instead they massacred civilians, turning outrage into international scandal. The European powers called the Constantinople Conference, demanding reforms. The Sultan, ever stubborn, said no thanks. Russia, fed up and fired up, declared war in 1877. Hundreds of thousands of Russian troops marched through Romania toward Constantinople. Britain, fearing a Russian Tea Party in Istanbul, demanded a ceasefire. Russia ignored them. Britain sent its navy to defend the city. Russia, not wanting a global war, halted its advance. The powers met at San Stefano, and the Ottoman Empire was gutted like a fish. Montenegro, Serbia, and Romania gained full independence. A new Bulgarian state was created. The Ottomans were left clutching a map with fewer colors. The Ottoman and Russian empires would clash one last time during World War I, a conflict so brutal it made all previous wars look like bar fights. Russia collapsed in 1917 under revolution, and the Tsarist regime was swept away. The Ottomans fared no better. After the war, they were partitioned by Britain and France, who occupied Istanbul like imperial Airbnb guests. But the story didn't end there. The Ottomans fought a war of independence, led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, and in 1923, the Ottoman Empire officially died. In its place rose the Republic of Turkey, modern, secular, and ready to leave centuries of imperial drama behind. And thus ends our tale of two empires. One frozen, one fried, locked in a centuries-long dance of ambition, religion, and cannon smoke. Next up, the revolution that shook the Tsar. The empire is cracking. The people are rising. One peaceful protest turns into a bloodbath. A battleship mutinies. Strikes erupt across Russia. Tsar Nicholas II is losing control, and the countdown to 1917 has begun.